You're watching Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Hi, Anthony Leverett here, host of the Next Pitch podcast, and on behalf of my Emmy Award-winning producer and partner, Jason Cardona, we just want to thank you for continuing to listen to what we're doing here. We are having a blast doing it, and as always, if you like what we're doing, the best way to spread this is to tell a friend, share it, like it, send us a message, and just help us promote the show and get our word out. We really appreciate your help in doing so. Today, we are joined by Denny Hocking. Denny is a 13-year Major League Baseball player and pretty amazing story. Multi-sport athlete through high school and only played 1 year of varsity baseball and ended up going to JUCO and getting drafted after his freshman year in junior college. And we talk about that entire journey, becoming a parent and coaching his own kids and everything in between. Obviously a very good baseball player, but even a better dude, which really shines through in this interview. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Denny Hocking, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for doing this. I think you just told me this might be your first podcast. So what an honor and a privilege for us to have you on, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Man, I really appreciate it. It's going to be cool.
Well, we will have properly introduced you before the show begins. But I want, first of all, kind of talk about the beginning of your career. Obviously, you played 13 years in the majors. But that doesn't just happen, right? There's a process that you have to go through to get to that point. When did you first start getting involved in athletics as a young person? What's your first memory? How far back does that go?
Oh my gosh. It's funny. I think everybody's journey is different, regardless of how high you make it in your career. I can go back to, playing youth soccer at the elementary school that's a block away from my house. And probably that's one of the first memories I have of really doing youth sports, where my mother was a coach and they had a draft and she did not draft me. So we played every team twice. And I remember that her team beat my team the first time. And the school was like a block away, and she's like, "Come on, let's get in the car." And I'm like, "I'm walking home." So I think that was probably when I was about 7, maybe. So
that is awesome.
Yeah,
one of the best stories I've ever heard in my life. Your mom didn't draft you.
Yeah. So she didn't draft me, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll show you." Competitive nature, and then we lost, and I'm like, "Nope, I'm walking home. I want to slow on this 15-house journey right now."
So as you start getting, navigating through elementary school and middle school, did you continue to play multi-sport, or were you just focused on baseball? When did that transition happen for you?
It was baseball and soccer all through elementary school. I went to a Catholic elementary school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, St. James in Redondo Beach, California, and started playing, I guess, Catholic League basketball, and really kind of enjoyed it. And then going into high school is when soccer and basketball coincided with one another for the season. So I had to make a decision, and basically I made my decision to stop playing soccer and start playing basketball based off of weather. Hey, you know what? It's kind of cold at this time of year. Why don't I stay in the gym and not on a rainy pitch? So that's how I kind of gravitated to basketball. So in high school, I was a 2-sport athlete, basketball and baseball. And
how much did playing multiple sports, do you think, help you as you were going through that process of getting to where you ended up getting to? But how much did that help you?
I think it was tremendous. I mean, you're able to focus on the season that it is and really dive into it and do some of the training that's necessary. But then on the other side, as it comes near to an end, then you start to gravitate toward the next sport that you're going to do. And I felt like you could really separate the seasons. So it wasn't constant one sport all the time like it is now. And I really look back and I'm super happy with the decision that I made at that point. And now being a parent, I look back at my children's journeys, and I think they're soccer athlete. Well, my girls are soccer and basketball when they were growing up. And I really felt like the movement on the basketball court to be able to defend and use your body and then get to open space has really helped them in their journey for soccer.
It's pretty remarkable. We talk about this a lot, and every high level athlete that we've had, except for one, has said the same thing about how important that multi-sport athletic experience was to their professional career, their Olympic career. Amy Van Dyken was the only one that didn't play multiple sports, and she wishes that she had. Like it's the only person that I've talked to, or she's the only person I've talked to. And there's so much that can come from it, both what you just talked about, the physical movement and physical nature of cross training and different times in different sports, but also that learning how to maybe not be the best player, have a different role on a team, fail maybe potentially, and have to get back up and do it again. And if you just play one sport from a young age, you're missing out on that opportunity of learning how to get up from failure and get back up and do it again.
Well, I think that, and as well, playing for multiple, whether it's parents who are coaching or coaches that are in that industry, you're hearing a different voice. They're probably handling you maybe a little bit differently based off of skill set and role. And then lastly, you're on different teams with different people. I know right now in high school, not in high school baseball, but in travel baseball, you can be on a team that you got all your local guys, and then you go guest out of state, and you're on a team with 7 other kids that are from 7 different states. So I think being a part of teams is fantastic. It's going to help you later on in your life, whether it's professionally or in a business world. But also being able to deal with different people, different personalities, and having to coincide with one another is great too.
When did you know that you were a baseball guy? When did that shift to being, okay, my future's in baseball, and how did you navigate that, having multiple sports?
Well, Anthony, as I mentioned earlier, I think everybody's path and their journey is built differently, and the roads are different. I look back, and I always say to people when I describe myself, "How was your journey?" I'm like, I was kind of like Forrest Gump in the sense I was a better high school basketball player than I was a high school baseball player. When I played high school baseball, I played freshman year, frosh soft. My sophomore year, I played frosh soft. My junior year, I played JV, and my senior year, I played varsity. I played 1 year of varsity baseball in my high school career. As a basketball player, I played freshman basketball, and then I played varsity for 3 years. So I look back, and I was fortunate enough to get noticed by Coach Dave Yanai over at Cal State Dominguez Hills. He offered me a scholarship. And I was like, man, this is going to be great. Go and play college basketball, get my education paid for, get off in the real world, figure out what I want to do. And when I went to the campus before ever, starting my college enrollment, I went and saw the baseball coach, and I said, I'm going to be here as a basketball player. I'd love to be able to play baseball too. I'm okay at baseball. He looks me in the face and he goes, dude, you're not good enough to play here. And that's when I started going, all right. Do I really want to play basketball? What's the future in that? And I actually turned down my Cal State Dominguez Hills basketball scholarship to go to junior college to play baseball. But I had the option to go to El Camino Junior College or Harvard Junior College. And I chose El Camino because it had a better journalism program. I turned down basically a scholarship to go play college basketball to go to JUCO to be a journalist. And then other things unfold. And then years later, I wind up being in the big leagues.
That's unbelievable. Before we go further into the baseball side of this, what's your best memory from hoops? I know you probably got a few of them, but what's the best memory you have from playing high school basketball?
Well, like Jason said earlier, the producer off air, I made about a shot from my dotted line of the free throw line obviously to the other side of the basket, and it was on a Halloween night. and I threw it, and then we got crushed that game. And I remember after the game, for some reason, the reporter comes up to me, and it was like the local cable channel, asked me, "Hey, talk about that shot." And I literally, as I'm looking in this camera, he asked me the question about, "Well, take me through the shot." And I go, "Well, right when I threw it, I knew it was in." Camera like, and I got so much grief for like, "Oh, you are so cocky. You are so arrogant." I'm like, "Didn't you see the relook at the camera?" Like, so that would be one of my memories. And then I think the other memory that I had was when I first started 6th, 7th, 8th grade. It was non-talented white kids, just could barely dribble with their offhand, things of that nature. And this is pre-3-pointer, you know? And I remember just learning about the game, falling in love with the game, and then going into my freshman year of high school, I say I really got baptized because the coach put me on a team in a league in the Compton, I think it was called Run and Jump. It was at Compton College. And I walked into this place and saw so many people that I have never seen before, 6'6", 6'8", and I'm like, yo, what am I doing here?
Was that Pump and Run? Was that the Pump and Run group?
Yeah, I think it was called the Run and Jump League or something like that.
I think it was Pump and Run. That was run by a couple famous brothers down there that started the pipeline of the AAU recruiting, and that's where it began. So that's a whole crazy story.
I mean, I was literally baptized. I remember we played a team, and it was James Moses, Don McLean, and then Derek Martin. And I don't know who these guys are going to ultimately become. And I remember they win the tip, they get a bucket, I get the ball, and I turn around, and Derek Martin is full defensive stance in my face. And I'm like, whoa, this is different. Because every league I've ever played in, you couldn't pick up full court until the last 2 minutes of the game. So I kind of shake him, and I could probably dribble left-handed at this point like 4 times with my left hand. So I shake him, go right. I'm going right to the sideline. He picks me, goes in for a layup. And I'm like, okay, no big deal. Literally get the ball, and he's in my grill again. Shake him, go left. He picks me again, bucket. And I'm like, all right, somebody else is going to have to come down and bring the ball up the court for the rest of the game because we're not even getting into an offensive set. And that was probably my most humbling basketball story that I ever had.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think my guess is that's the Pump and Run, the kind of the genesis of that group. Yeah. And they were there's some crazy stories about what transpired from that whole beginning and genesis of that program. But it's cool that you were a part of that.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun.
So you get to JUCO, you start playing baseball. Take me through what was that path for you from JUCO to get into the majors? What did that look like for you?
Well, this is where, again, excuse me, it turns into the whole Forrest Gump story, where I went to junior college. I caught my senior year in high school because nobody else on the team could do it. Coach said, "You're athletic, go figure it out." Okay, coach, thanks. Who was, a former baseball player, minor league player, I believe, is maybe just college, but an English teacher. So it's not like there's a lot of instruction going on here. It's just try to keep the ball in front of you, I guess. So when I go to junior college, I'm a right-handed hitter, and I catch every other game. So I would catch, play third, catch, play second, catch, play right. My freshman year, I did not pitch, play short, or play third. I'm sorry, first, short, or pitch. And half of those games I was catching. So we get done through my freshman year, and I get a packet one day in the mail, and I'm sitting with a buddy of mine, and I open this packet up. It's from the Minnesota Twins, and it's like, "Congratulations, you've been drafted." And I'm like, yo, what is this? I don't even understand this. What does this mean? So he's like, dude, you've been drafted. I'm like, yeah, I can read a little bit, but I don't understand. He's like, you could sign a contract and go play in the minor leagues. And I'm like, how's that work? Totally oblivious to the whole process. So a scout calls me, comes into my house, introduces himself. We've been tracking you. We like your skill set. We drafted you in the 52nd round. Now there's only 20 rounds. So as I wind up going on and on and on, I'm the lowest drafted player to ever play in the big leagues for the Minnesota Twins. The year I was drafted, I believe the Chicago White Sox did a favor to somebody and took a female before I was drafted, which is fantastic for her. Great. I mean, trailblazer. But
And great for the story.
I'm like, great, awesome. But the first thing the scout says when he sits in my house on my couch is he goes, Denny, we don't want to sign you. Now I'm like, wait, how does this work? You draft me, but then you don't want to sign me? So at that point, it was called a draft and follow. So they drafted me. They had my rights all the way for about the next 11 months. So I was able to go back to junior college, and they said, we'll talk to your coach. We really like your athleticism. We want you to see if you can play shortstop. So in the summer between my freshman year and sophomore year of junior college, I learned how to hit left-handed by two of my friends that were left-handed hitters every day in the cage, just grinding. And my sophomore year as a switch hitting shortstop, wound up getting some offers if I didn't sign. I had a potential offer to Arizona to be a Wildcat, but I had chose Texas Tech. And lo and behold, I wound up signing with the Twins before the next year's draft. And how
long is the minors?
I wound up signing and going to short season. That was on Elizabethton, Tennessee in the Appalachian League. The next year was a full season, 91 in Kenosha, Wisconsin in low A. The next season was high A, Visalia, California. And at that point, they had the expansion draft. I think it was the Marlins and the Rockies. So when they had the expansion draft, they had to protect so many players. And I had a crazy good year, my year in the California League. Led the entire minor leagues in hits, 182 hits. Just had a great season at the right time. Got put on the roster. And then 93, I was in Double A. And at the end of the Double A season is when I got called up to the big leagues in 93. And then,
so I want to ask about this. So I coached small college men's basketball, junior college, D3, then went to Japan and coached in Japan, and then NAIA for 5 years. So 11 total years of small college. And you drive in vans all over the place, right? Like 15-hour trips to go play a game, and then drive home from that same trip in the van, right? Like with kids. Motels, not hotels. I had rain hit me in my face through a window that wouldn't close in a hotel while I was sleeping next to the head coach in the bed next to me because we couldn't afford multiple rooms. So I know the minor leagues have some similarity to that world, right? You go from that world, and then I get the job at the University of Utah. And like our third game, we played the University of Minnesota, and I was home in time that night for dinner from Minneapolis back to Salt Lake, right? So like my world just changed. What was that like for you going from being in the minors with not just the playing of it, and I'm in the bigs now, but holy shit, this is a different world, right? Like what was that feeling like, the difference between those two?
It was, when I was coming up through the minor leagues, the travel my first 2 years wasn't bad. And then I actually got to play in the California League. Visalia was about 4 hours roughly from my house. So my mother would come up. I actually met my wife in Visalia at that time. But the ability to be able to drive down to Southern California in a bus and have family or friends at games it didn't make it feel like a job, and then going out, my Double A year was in Nashville, Tennessee. So you're riding buses in the Southern League, the trips are longer, the weather's obviously a little bit different, but driving buses where sometimes the AC really doesn't work and you're on a bus at 3 a.m. and you got somebody who can't sleep, but yet is in charge of the aux and is blaring the aux at 3 a.m. You're like, dude, I know you're 3 days away starting pitcher, but we really like to get some rest so we can actually perform tomorrow. I know it doesn't impact your numbers, but it impacts mine. So going through stuff like that and then getting to the big leagues and flying on a charter. I've never boarded a plane from a bus to a tarmac in the back of the flight with snacks. And I think on the first charter flight I was ever on in the big leagues, from Arlington back to Minneapolis, I was probably the only guy wearing a seatbelt on the plane. Like, you gotta do this, right? And you gotta, like, I gotta turn my phone off and all that stuff. And I was so naive to the whole process of it.
That is Forrest Gumpish.
It's so
look at the guy wearing the seatbelt.
I know. And this is why, like, I look at, you know, my children's journeys, and then I look at kids who are coming up right now that are entering their freshman year in high school, and parents are like, we got to do this, we got to do that. If we don't sign a hitting coach, then we're going to be so far behind. And I'm like, oh, please stop the insanity.
We're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. So you're in Minnesota, and you get to play alongside a guy that everybody knows, Kirby Puckett, right? Yeah. What was the impact that he had, a guy like that had on you as you were going through your journey, watching him and how he prepared and everything that he did and meant to the game? What was that like for you?
A true blessing, not just to be around Kirby, but I was fortunate enough to be around guys like Dave Winfield, who took me under his wing for the time that he was there. Paul Molitor did the exact same thing with me. Paul Molitor and I used to play cribbage on the plane for money. So I probably put his daughter through college, but the life lessons and the baseball lessons that I learned from him during those card games was insurmountable. And going back to Kirby, a true leader, a guy that put team before himself. And I remember, so my first big league spring training was 93. We're going through the first couple of weeks of the training. We start games. I get a hit in my first at bat in Lakeland, Florida. We come home. Next day, I'm starting at City of Palms Park against the Red Sox. My first at bat, I hit a ground ball. It's a PFP, pitcher's fielding practice. First baseman throws it to the pitcher. He drags his foot across the base. I'm like, I've got to make a team here. I'm sprinting down the line. I land on the pitcher's foot, roll my ankle, break my ankle. The second big league camp at bat that I ever had. So now I'm shut down. Well, the next day I wind up going to the clubhouse. The team's in a meeting and they get done. So I'm waiting outside. They walk out, and Kirby was the only guy that stopped and said, "Hey man, how you doing? Hope you're going to be okay. If you ever need anything, let me know." And I thought it was so remarkable for him to basically go to a nobody. I was a nobody in my mind, and treat me like a brother was fantastic. And then the other story that I love about Kirby was later in that year, I get called up to the big leagues for what happens to be Nolan Ryan weekend in Arlington. So I get called up on a Friday. Doubleheader Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, Nolan happens to be pitching on Sunday. Well, I had started game 2 of the doubleheader on Friday, started the Saturday game, and I'm like, I have no chance to start on Sunday. I'm not going to face Nolan. No problem. I walk into the locker room, look at the lineup, take a peek, and just kind of start walking away. And I go, wait a minute. Did that actually have my name on it? And I go to the lineup, and I'm going down in the 9 hole. It says Hocking, shortstop. And I just kind of put my head down like, you've got to be kidding me. Well, of course, Kirby's right there. He puts his arm around me and goes, don't worry about a big guy. He only likes to hit the young guys. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. So we wind up getting into the game. Nolan throws his warm-up pitches. After the last one, he walks over to the third base line, bends down, starts putting his hand on the grass to feel for moisture. looks in the dugout, and I'm like, yo, what's going on, man? And he goes, just don't bunt on him. And I'm like, no problem. So he goes, stick around a little bit, boys. Let me show you how this is done. He's a 3-hole hitter, goes deep off Nolan. And I'm like, it's not supposed to be that easy. Kirby was a guy that really put a lot of fun into the game, took a lot of anxiety out of you when you were having to go out there and perform. And just, I mean, I feel like I can look back and say, man, he was just a caricature of himself in the game of baseball.
That's cool. So being around at the highest level, playing at the highest level, what do you think separates guys, gals, both, right? Athletes that are good to great, right? Like when you watching what you did and how you got to where you got to, guys that were the very best at what they do, what is that fine line between being good and being great at something that you're doing?
Mental toughness, and I mean, overall, really, it's mental toughness, and then confidence factors into that as well.
How do you define mental toughness? What is the kind of the people talk about that term all the time? We got to be more mentally tough. What is that? What does that mean to you, mental toughness?
For me, it means having a standard that you set that is achievable, but when you fall short of achieving that, are you capable of, instead of just having a pity party, can you look back and learn from the failures in order to push yourself and maybe be a little bit more consistent in that? And then once you're able to do those kinds of things, honestly, I think your standards for yourself continue to raise. So I think you're always being challenged of that mental toughness and how much you can dig deep inside of yourself to be able to find what's needed for the next step.
I love that definition. That is fantastic. Okay, so you have your 13-year career in the bigs, and the day comes to an end, right? That you can't play anymore. It happens for everybody at some point in time, and ultimately, eventually, you transition into coaching. What was the difference for you going from being part of the game, like being in the game, to watching and helping other people play the game? What was that transition like for you?
So once I got out of baseball, I wound up getting into broadcast journalism. So I was doing a football call-in show for Fox Sports Net. I was doing a baseball call-in show. I was writing articles for the LA Times. I was working for MLB.com. So I was wasn't really totally removed from Major League Baseball, which was fantastic. But then it got to a point where I'm like, well, you got laid off here, and then now you're not making any money, and now you're getting paid $10 an hour. Like, dude, you got to do something. So I wound up, thinking about getting into coaching, and I got hired by an old GM of mine, Andy McPhail, who was with the Orioles at the time. So he actually hired me, and I saw Sandy Alomar, senior, at a golf tournament that offseason, going into my first year of coaching. And Sandy was a coach with the Colorado Rockies when I was there. And I said, hey, look, I just got a job. I'm going to be coaching professional baseball, obviously in the minor leagues. I said, give me one piece of advice. And he said, get to know your players before you coach them. And it's the one thing that I've always really hung my hat on. And you being in the industry, you hear the slogans, you hear the coach speak and all that. A player doesn't care until they know how much you care what you did, until you care about them. I'm totally butchering that, by the way. And but I really took to that, and I found myself really understanding not everybody on the team that I was associated with year in and year out, but getting to know them personally, getting to know what makes them tick, getting to know how to push them over the edge into having them reach down and feel a little bit more comfortable, having an idea that you could be great on that given day, but you're really hiding personal relationships or family relationships, or you're just not comfortable. Things aren't going your way away from, the job. And I think once I really started doing that and focusing on those things, I really felt like I was able to make an impact on so many kids along the way.
There are a lot of slogans out there about it, but the reason there's a lot of them out there is because it's true.
Yeah.
And kids, young people, young athletes, they crave connection. And if you can figure out a way to connect with somebody on a level different than their performance first, they're going to do so much more for you and be so much more willing to listen to what you have to share with them than if you just lead with trying to break them down and what they're doing, right? Like, it is a critical component in successful coaches. And not everybody does it. And there's some success with just leading with the hammer. But if you can figure out how to lead with relationship first, yeah, I believe it is just far more sustainable in the long run.
It is. And I think, going back to your coaching career, I'm sure that people reach out to you just randomly now. And I have that go on periodically. And when it happens, I'm like, man, I haven't talked to this person in like 8 years. Yeah. And it just makes me feel like I had an impact on their life, not just their career, but on their life. And I think that's probably the most rewarding thing as a leader that you can have.
Yeah, that's great. So you have 3 pretty talented kids of your own, correct?
Yes, sir.
How much did you coach them through their process? Were you the dad coach of all of the sports all the way through that process?
I was not, ironically. So we have twin daughters that are 25 now, and our son just turned 22 this past week.
And you're the only Minnesota Twin to have twins. I think I read that somewhere, which is pretty cool.
Okay, so this is where I always got to give credit where credit's due. My wife. Okay, because believe me, I saw her in the labor. I saw her, in labor, and I all credit goes to her.
I'm married with 2 kids, and that is exactly right. I am so wrong, and if my wife is listening to this, I apologize to your wife and all the wives out there and women that have had children.
So bizarre. We were the first family to have twins while being baseball players for the Minnesota Twins. I wore number 7. When I left, Joe Mauer took the number. Joe Mauer's wife gave birth to twins when he was still a Twin.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
And so, the number's retired now. And I tell people all the time, yeah, I've got my number retired in the big leagues. And they're like, that's Joe Mauer's number. And I'm like, my name's on the front, the one that's pinned up on the wall. You can't see it. And I'm like, the only reason Joe Mauer had those numbers because I wasn't very good in that number. So you know how many hits I left in that number? But ironically, my son was a little bit of basketball, a lot of football, and then a lot of baseball. I never coached my son in baseball.
So parenting them through that process, what did you do right and what did you do wrong? Like, how many? Because I'm doing it right now. My daughter just graduated from high school and is now actually at the University of Utah, back where I coached, and is on the women's basketball staff as a student manager, which is super cool. And I have a son that's a 15-year-old freshman athlete. What did you, as you look back on that journey with your kids, what was the best thing that you did to help them along the way from your experience? And then if you could fix something, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. If maybe there isn't anything, there's plenty for me. But if there's anything that you would, advise the parents, don't do this.
I look back and I think it was allowing them to make their own decisions, but based off of the streets that we put them down. And I can remember the girls, we said, let's get you guys active in sports here. So we got the old Park and Recs book out and we're looking at it. We said, choose something. Well, one of my daughters chose soccer and the other one chose cheerleading. So they had practice one night. So one's at one park and one's at the other. My wife's with the soccer. I'm with the cheerleader. So when we get done, I take my daughter who was cheerleading over to the soccer practice. Well, at the end of the soccer session, the coach has lollipops. And so the girls are all in line. And my cheerleader daughter runs out there. And I'm like, yo, no. You were cheerleading. You didn't go through the rigors, the ruthless practice of a 6-year-old going through soccer right now. You get over here. And she's like, well, then I want to play soccer too. That's really how my other daughter got into the soccer.
Power with the lollipop.
Right? Sugar. You know,
That's
it's perfect. And so, but I look back and just the conversations that my wife and I would have, and just the direction and just the support, and just being able to sit back and have them make sure that they would have fun and mix in, and then just kind of let them go on their own journey. Um, what I would change, um, honestly, and my son brings it up all the time. He's like, Dad, I wish you were taller so I could be taller. So somehow maybe use an inversion board back in my youth days to stretch myself out. Somehow, be a genetic freak where I was physically more gifted and taller. And that way my son could have benefited from that. That's probably what I'd change.
That's great. Well, the idea that you got him involved in multiple sports at a young age, we did that with my son. I think he played 7 different 6-week sports between like the 3rd grade and the 5th grade. Wow. And he hated all of them. But we wanted to give him access to as many things, like these little 6-week segments that the little YMCA had, and futsal, lacrosse, soccer. He did them all, and didn't like any of them. And finally came to what he loves to do on his own. We screwed it up with my daughter, and she just played basketball, and we wanted her to play more, but we didn't give her the opportunity young enough. I was too damn busy, which is my bad. But it's that access that you say of letting them come to that decision on their own, but giving them access to enough of it so they can make that decision.
Well, it's funny. You had said you put your son in all these different sports, and man, you hated them. And I think you have to be able to read your kids, and what they say and what they do are a lot of times 2 completely different things. We always laugh at my son back when he was little, and we got him into Pop Warner football. And so he'd go to school, and then he'd come home and he'd start playing homework, whatever the case may be. But we're getting close to, all right, dude, you got to start getting ready for football. I don't want to go to football. Football sucks. All this, and just super negative. I don't want to go to practice. Hey, dude, well, you ain't quitting, sorry. And we put him in the car. He would jump out of the car literally before we could find a parking spot and just be sprinting to his practice. And I'm like, and this is the kid that 20 minutes ago was like, I don't want to be here. And I think that's something that you have to have the wherewithal and the feel. I think, we use that term in baseball a lot. You have to have some feel. You have to understand what their actions say and what their words say as well. And when you can match those things up, I think that's when you really find the proper direction in that they want to go.
That is a great place to wrap this up with the interview portion of this podcast. But now, the 2 super important parts of this. You've obviously been on quite a journey going through as a player, and then raising kids and doing everything that you've done. If you could go back in time to your 14-year-old self, 13, however old you want to imagine yourself being, and tap yourself on the shoulder, knowing everything you've been through, what advice would you give your young self for that journey?
I'd probably say, looking back on things, I wouldn't change any part of the direction other than go do another rep. Go spend 5 more minutes at your craft. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go through the whole gamut and then get to, the ultimate pinnacle as far as a baseball player in the major leagues. But I can look back and say that now, because there was a time when I was in Minnesota going through my career, and Paul Molitor was a teammate at that time. He had 2,996 hits. And I show up at the park one day and I hear somebody hitting on the field at like 12 o'clock. I'm like, who's hitting? Did the other team taking extra batting practice? What? So I walk down there, and it's Paul Molitor taking swings. So that night we're on the plane going to Kansas City, and I'm like, yo, what are you doing at 12 o'clock today? Like, you do realize you're 4 hits away from the Hall of Fame. And he goes, I'm just not happy with my swing right now. And I'm like, let me just kind of brainstorm. I'm at about 300 hits right now in my career. And I think I went to the cage at like 4 o'clock. Yeah, I need to really kind of be more intentional in my reps. And I think that's one thing, Anthony, that I would change. I would go back and just be a little bit more intentional, and embracing the grass that I'm at to be able to make sure that that day I got a little bit better in some aspect, whether it was a physical, a teammate aspect of it, or just the mentality of it.
I think that's good advice for 14-year-olds, 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings, and 50-somethings like me. Just get a little bit better every single day at what you're doing, and you're going to probably be okay.
Yeah. And I use the term a lot of times with the high school kids right now. Right now, you're standing at this point. If you get better at some aspect, if you get and you take one step forward, great. If the next day happens and you take another step forward and another step, so 3 days you get better at one thing. Maybe that fourth day you're a little tired, a little under the weather, and you take a step back. Can you get to just the day before? And if you continue that journey, and you'll progress, and then you'll come down a little bit, but in 30 days, how much better are you going to be when you can look back and see where you started from 30 days ago, and then continue that and continue that? But I think there has to be a focus on not just the physical side, but the mental side. And then again, your ability to be able to be a quality teammate to support the others around you.
It's so good. All right, man. Well, thank you for doing this. Last thing today, I'm a big dad joke guy. So I know your daughter says that everything that comes out of your mouth is a joke. So I've got one, so I understand. But I want to hear your dad joke you got for me.
Okay, so I really don't have a go-to, so I just kind of had to look at one. Little birdie told me that we may be doing this.
Okay.
So the dad joke that I'm going with today is, what is a knight's favorite meal?
What is a knight's favorite meal?
Like a knight from back in the medieval days.
I've never heard this one, and I have no idea.
Swordfish.
I love it. I absolutely love it, man. They're so bad they're good. They're amazing, and I know why they're called dad jokes, but they are fantastic. I appreciate you brightening my day with that little piece there.
Well, I'm glad to make you chuckle a little bit. Hopefully you can regurgitate that and plagiarize it and pass it on.
Oh, I will. It'll go to the family chat as soon as I'm done here. So
very nice.
Well, Denny, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. This has been an absolute pleasure. And really, thank you for doing this.
And man, I really appreciate you guys having me on. And don't lose that SVP thing you got working, man.
It's all I got, so it's what I'm going to go with.
Well, I'm getting there. I'm trying to catch you.
All right, man.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anthony Leverett's back here. And just a reminder, if you like what we're doing, share us with your friends, share these episodes with your friends, write a review. It really helps us get this show promoted and more people listening and getting our message out there. Really, really enjoyed the interview with Denny today. What a great guy. Obviously a high-level baseball player, but he's an even better human being. And we talked about a whole bunch of stuff, but he gave a definition of mental toughness. And I know that's a word that gets used a lot in sports. We just got to be more mentally tough. And kids think to themselves, what does that mean? Do I just need to strain harder with my brain? Like, what does mentally tough mean? And I asked him that, and his definition was amazing. Being mentally tough means setting difficult but attainable goals. And then when you don't reach that goal, having the fortitude and the discipline to get back up and work on whatever that skill set is that is required to reach that attainable goal. And then I would challenge that even further is once you do reach it, then ratcheting up that goal a little bit harder to be a little bit more difficult to attain. And building that fortitude comes from not reaching that goal and figuring out how to get there and forcing yourself to do it. I thought it was a remarkable definition of mental toughness. And then we talked about some of the guys that he played with. And I think he did mention their hits and their a couple of home runs that they hit in Paul Molitor and Kirby Puckett. But what he mentioned more was how much they meant to him as people and mentors for him, and how they took him under his wing. Mentioned Dave Winfield as well, who took him under his wing. Pretty impressive guys to take a rookie and make sure that they're helping that person along. And I think the lesson there is, doesn't matter what program you're in, what level you're in, what sport you're playing. If you're one of the elite players on your team, for multiple reasons, it is imperative to pay it back to the people that are coming up through your program. And number one, it's going to help your team win more. If you're a leader and you want to win, helping and building a relationship with those younger than you, or maybe not at the same level you are, is going to help your team win more. But it's going to have an impact on that person that you do it to. And hearing a guy that played in the major leagues talk about his reverence for Kirby Puckett and Paul Molitor because of the way they treated him, not the way they played, but the way that they treated him, is an incredible lesson. And then when we got into parenting and coaching your kids, and Denny never coached his own children through, but what he did that he really believes he got right, and I agree with him, is that he pointed his kids in the right direction. And our job as parents with student athletes isn't to make them do something. It's to give them opportunity to do many things, find out which one of those they love, and then continue to give them opportunity to lift themselves up through that sport. And I think you'll find if you expose your children to multiple things instead of trying to get them to do exactly what you want, the experience for both of you is going to be even better. Again, thanks to Denny for coming on the show. Thank you all for listening and watching. And again, please share this if you like what we're doing. And we will talk to you again soon.